This is gonna be this one. So here's the thing with Launch. Let's hop in the old Wayback Machine. Hey guys, Jason here. So Pasture was the most popular app from this last week's newsletter. So this is actually pretty crazy to think about. Just over a year ago, I had never really posted to social media. I was the guy like in his garage hacking on cool stuff. I didn't get it. I didn't get the value of sharing what I did, of meeting other people. Who likes networking, right? But I was talking with somebody at Engage. We had a little get together for our accountant community. He said, 12 months ago, I was one of your first 20 Twitter followers. And here we are at Topgolf with like 15 people, some of whom flew across the country just for a couple days to get together with other people in the little community that we've built. And holy smokes, it puts everything that we're doing on the web in perspective. It puts tweeting in perspective. It puts tax Twitter in perspective. I think you lose sight of it because we're in it every day. We've come to depend on it. But what an unbelievably powerful thing online communities have become. And it wasn't much more than a year ago that I hadn't engaged with any of this stuff, didn't know anything about it. And to be honest, I think I was probably at the same place where 95% of people still are. They're lurking, but not engaging in the community so much. There may be people they follow, they pop out and steal ideas, but they haven't become part of that community yet. And when I started Launch, it was to become part of a community that I think didn't exist yet. It was to collect a bunch of tech nerds like myself in the accounting industry, to attract the people that thought the way I did about the profession, and learn a bit about email marketing and those tools along the way. That was Launch. Launch was a weekly newsletter that was just, hey, here's some cool tools I came upon in the last week. But that was 18 months ago. Today, we've built that community. It's a tiny, tiny subset of people in the accounting world, really just the folks that are poking around on Twitter. But I'm at the point where the utility of Launch, it's accomplished those things that I think I set out to do with it from the beginning. I've met some incredible people. I've got go-to people for all sorts of different tech things inside the accounting space. And at the end, it developed into more like a fun thing, almost like this like quasi variety show, but it had achieved the things that I set out to achieve with it initially. And I think there's a lot to be learned by ending something, by stopping doing something. It puts everything that you do in perspective. So if you look at the people that have identity crises when it comes to buying out a partner and they don't know what to do next, or an athlete after their career is over, having nowhere to turn. It puts in perspective that I think all the projects we do in life, you have to be real about what am I getting out of this? It could simply be financial. It could be building a certain skill set. But every project has a useful life. If you don't acknowledge that, I think you're lying to yourself. And actually being mindful of what that useful life is while you're doing it probably ensures that you're getting everything out of it that you can, and that you don't do it longer than you ought to do. And that's where I'm at with Launch. It's opened so many doors for me. I've learned so many things from it that it has changed me into a different person, one that's now better suited to do other things. One of those things I learned along the way is I really enjoyed building video content. Oh, you're speaking my language. Sure. Never done a thing on video before. So in July of last year, I posted a 7-minute loom demoing the top tool from the previous week. And that's it. But the real, the clever thing that it does is it gives you a web form. It sucked. It was me on a laptop webcam in this room. It was awkward. I did so many takes, but when I put it out in the newsletter, people loved it. It got 4 times more clicks than any tool had in the history of Launch. And so I made it a habit. Each week I would shoot a, not 7 minutes, some shorter length video featuring the top tool of the last week. And before long, the actual newsletter itself had really just become a mechanism for people to watch those weekly videos. 5 or 10 as many people would click on those weekly videos as actually did the new tools that were being featured each week. So I knew I had stumbled into something with video. And this weekly newsletter was a mechanism to force me to build that habit. I had to do it every single week. And in retrospect, I think this pushed me through the really hard early stages of practicing video. I was doing it, it was uncomfortable, they didn't feel very good, but I actually had the metrics that said, yeah, people actually care about this. Whether it's good or not, they're engaging with it. And that helped me probably overcome that initial internal struggle with seeing yourself on video and hearing your voice and all that. So Launch FA, if you're not familiar, it's like a tech discovery thing I do for accountants. And it goes out a lot of places. Launch taught me that there are so many untapped business opportunities out there today leveraging new tech. So I'm inside of my base here that is all of the launches that have ever been shared via Launch FA. So I've got an explainer of how Launch worked, how it automated social posting. Basically what I have is a form for myself where I submit the new tools that I want to share. And then this formula field rolls up all of the formula fields we just looked at. I copy and paste this HTML, and that's the entire newsletter. And distribution and the actual building of the newsletter itself was a copy paste into MailChimp. I spend about 20 minutes a week sourcing the tools and 5 minutes a week or so on distribution. I had it to a really good place, and then I started doing video. That's not quite so quick. But even before starting to do video, Launch had advertisers. We had multiple several $1,000 ad buys just on an email newsletter, no video, with less than 300 subscribers at the time. This was super valuable because it was super niche, but at the end of the day, almost totally automated. And this experience is what makes me excited about new revenue streams for accounting firms. So I always talk about getting outside the box. If you're having a hard time staffing tax, stop doing more tax, find a new revenue stream. These tools are new within the last 5 years. How many new accounting services have you seen develop in the last 5 years? Not many. I don't think we're leveraging them enough yet. Launch taught me about anti-goals. So what are the things that I know I do not enjoy? Without the context of running a different type of business, I wouldn't have a window to what running a non-accounting firm looks like. Let's be real, the only business I've been deeply involved in my career has been running an accounting firm. And I see now how accounting firms are driven by the urgent.
Things are gonna be okay.
When you're working with a bunch of clients, there is always that risk of an urgent request coming up every day. And there's this passive level of anxiety I've learned that I have just because there's that necessity of presence, of availability, to be the firefighter. Most businesses don't work this way. And so I've got a new anti-goal now. I'm never going to start another project that adds to that baseline level of anxiety where things can crop up, where you have those urgent, unexpected requests, because those things accumulate. It's one of the worst parts of running a larger firm. More people, more clients, more problems. And there's a lot of cool projects out there you could tackle. But before diving into any of them, I've got to compare them with my anti-goals. Is the success of this project, if it does go well, is it going to conflict with any of those? It's something I'm always thinking of. If I'm going to start doing video production for software companies, am I then answering to more clients? Having to be accountable to more people, what I'm trying to get away from. If I started a no-code development agency, am I going straight back into client work? If I develop all these automations that are running for people in the background, am I creating this baseline level of anxiety to ensure that all those things are working, to always be available when something breaks? Now, there's always a way to staff a business to be able to support that stuff, to take it off your plate. But if you can't see a path to that, maybe you make more money, maybe it's a fun challenge, but is the destination somewhere that you actually want to be? Anytime you pump a bunch of effort into something, you have to think about what's the shelf life of that thing that you just created. Is that thing gonna keep working for you tomorrow, and the next week, the next month? A client email is a great example of something that has very short-term value. You answer a question, that's it. It's valuable for as long as the client remembers that you gave them value, which probably isn't very long. A video, by comparison, that you park on your website that's a helpful explainer for the ERC or something like that. People will come back to that for months. And it's something that may not even take any longer than sending that email reply to a client, that blog post. Launch, by definition, was a somewhat ephemeral feed of new tech. And there were undertones in there that were valuable, I think, where I would sort of rail on those same themes over and over again. But fundamentally, the core content was fleeting. It's not something long tail. It's not something that somebody's gonna come back to 3 years from now and glean a bunch of value from. So if I'm gonna pump time into building a video every single week, make it a video that's gonna work for me for months, for years. Lean into all the things that made Launch special and fun, and it's always gonna be something to do with tech. That's just what I have fun with. But instead, make it something that's gonna give people value for years, not just week over week. Lastly, find the highest leverage channel for your message. A year ago, I didn't know what my message was. Today I do. It's enabling the next generation of accounting firm owners. And it's ensuring that that next wave of tech, which I think is already here, the one that accountants are supposed to be afraid of, I actually think accountants are going to become the ultimate operators if they lean into this tech. Developers don't know the problems to solve. I don't know that there's anybody better suited than accountants to work on the problems we're solving. That's my message. So with what I know now, I gotta kind of sit back and reassess. What's the best way to distribute that message? Is it making weekly videos about a new Chrome extension or an update to this or that tool? Probably not. There's gonna be a lot of pulling in stuff like that where it's relevant. Still elements of tech discovery, because I think that's really important. But what's better is giving people a journey, giving them a path. Whether they're an expert today or a beginner, how do you make it accessible for people to start developing along that path, to lean into leverage? Because I think the fundamental model of realization and what's possible for somebody in knowledge work is completely changing. And that's what people need to hear. So what does that mean? It means different stuff. I think it means better stuff. Things like this YouTube channel, more like a behind the scenes, talking about how stuff is produced, talking about how to build an audience, because accountants are terrible self-promoters. But the best thing you can do is more of that thing you already do well. So your biggest problem is distribution, not your technical abilities, but distribution for the thing that you already do. So I think there's value in everybody learning about audience building. I think there's opportunities to pull accountants into really good non-accounting channels. Find collaborations where non-accountants who are doing really cool stuff with new tech can introduce these concepts to accountants, and then accountants learn how to apply them to their unique problems we're solving. Right now you can develop a mobile app in 5 minutes, but you haven't. Right now you could throw together a helpful website for a client, like a knowledge base for their employees in 5 minutes, but we haven't. I mean, you can build a desktop bot by just clicking around and telling it what to do, but we haven't. The tech is here, but how do we productize it? That's the content I'm interested in. Beginner to expert content to not only enable you, but enable your team. And then how do you amplify that thing you do? How do you build an audience? You can do something really special, but if you don't have distribution, nobody's ever gonna know about it. That's gonna be the purpose of this studio channel. So more channels, more fun. It was really hard to make the decision on launch, but taking a couple weeks to decompress, think about what's next, it's gonna be pretty great. That next version of accounting, the one after cloud accounting, realize now we've been talking about it for the last year. And I think it's here now.